Hello and welcome to 60 minutes of unscripted .NET entertainment. Our mission is to empower the .NET community to achieve more. I'm your host, Cam Soper, with my co-hosts Maira, Wenzel, and David Pine. And we'd like to welcome today's guest, Weston Walker. Hey, Weston, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I've been a software engineer for about 15 years now. My first 5 years primarily focused on web development, and then I went into more software engineering role with .NET, but that kind of inspired me to create what we're talking about today, Spark.net, which is focused on web development with ASP.NET and Blazor, just kind of filling in some of the gaps that I see to make getting a project started a little easier and maintaining the application as well.
Very cool. That sounds like it's going to be something that David Pine has a lot to say about. He knows a little bit about Blazor. Just
a little. Not me.
Yeah. All right.
Whoever
so
writes a book on a topic is an expert.
So yeah, let's hop into it. What's it about? Tell us how to get started on this framework and why we want to and all that good stuff.
Sure. So it's basically just built on top of Blazor server, with .NET 8 and Blazor server-side rendering coming out. We'll probably switch it over to that by default, and then let users extend it to server or WASM as they see fit. But I use the term framework maybe a little loosely, but it's essentially a group of libraries that you can put into your service container, inject into your Blazor components or other services you have to make things like sending email and scheduling jobs easy. It also comes with a CLI tool, and that helps you scaffold out components, CRUD for your models. It does come with Entity Framework already hooked up as well. So everything, goes through that. So based on what models you have created, you can scaffold out CRUD, you can do all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
So I'm hearing Blazor. I'm hearing Blazor on Rails.
It is definitely heavily inspired by Rails and Laravel, mostly Laravel. I came from a Laravel background in my early days. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I don't know if any of you have experience with Laravel or Rails, but as I kind of go through the documentation and demo, you'll probably be like, yep, that looks familiar. That looks familiar. So yeah.
I've been doing like .NET for 20 years.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
I'm intrigued.
Cool. Yeah, I'll hop into the docs, and I'll kind of loosely follow the docs, and we can create an application with it. So I did release a new version of it this morning, so that might have been a little risky, but I think we'll be all right. And I also uninstalled everything as far related to Spark, so we can start from scratch and just go through everything. So the first thing in the docs we'll go to is the installation page. There is a couple requirements. You need .NET 7 installed, and you'll need the Entity Framework core tools installed. I actually do have those installed, but the second thing you'll need to do is install the Spark CLI tool. This is what you'll use to create projects and scaffold out components and different things. So I will go ahead and install the Spark CLI tool.
And just to clear some confusion, like with folks that are familiar with the other products that are named Spark in the .NET ecosystem, like this is not about big data and the .NET for Apache Spark. This is a project name, like a web framework named Spark.NET, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. I have gotten a lot of feedback on that, but changing the name is kind of too late now. So
naming is hard.
Could we zoom in a little bit on this, on the docs here that you're sharing?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Much better. Okay. Also, I have a command prompt up, but it doesn't look like it's sharing. So maybe I didn't share my entire desktop. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that might be the situation. So when you do share, there should be options for like sharing screen, and then you would pick the entire desktop.
Okay. Let me try to do that again.
We've got lots of lovely viewers live from all around the world. We're seeing Algeria, Nepal, Nigeria, Iran, Thailand.
Jamaica before I saw.
Yeah.
Colombia
now.
Oh, perfect. Love it. Love it.
All right, cool. So I ran that Spark install command here.
Mm-hmm.
So now we can run some of the out of the box Spark commands for us. So going back to the documentation, second step, we'll run the Spark install command, and this will install the Spark templates that we use to generate projects. So Spark install. There we go. It comes with 3 templates. Blazor is my main focus with this framework, but I do have an option for MVC and Razor Pages, and those two don't get kept up to date as much, but it comes with everything hooked up that the Blazor would have hooked up, but some of the scaffolding isn't there for those. Like you can scaffold out Blazor pages and components, but you can't scaffold out MVC controllers and pages. So that's really the only difference. Okay, so now we're ready to create our first Spark project. So we can run the Spark new command and then the name of our project. So we'll call it the .NET Live Demo. And then we can CD into that project.
Any chance we can zoom in on this terminal window too, by chance? I think if you just have it focused and then mouse wheel up and control, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, better.
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, cool. And so when you run the Spark new command, you also have some of the different options. You can specify the template type. So this is where you pass in the MVC eraser. You can also specify the CSS type. So you can ask for Tailwind, Bootstrap. Out of the box, just a Spark new command is going to give you Blazor and Tailwind. So that's what we did.
Love that.
Yep. All right, and then this is mostly for me, but we can run Spark Open, and that'll launch Visual Studio with our application. I just got tired of going to the file system and
right.
clicking the solution. So. All right, now we see our application. I'll just go ahead and do like a quick rundown of the project structure, and then we can go ahead and just create some CRUD. So it does use app settings.json, and you'll see in here a lot of the values are env something. Anything with an env underscore like app name here, I'll go ahead and zoom in so you can see a little better. That's going to actually get pulled out of the .env file that comes with Spark applications. So, anything in your .env file is going to be, it's something that's going to change based on your environment. So whether you're local or in production, things like database connection strings. We have different logger drivers. So you can log to a file, you can log to the console, and then mail as well. We have a mailer driver here. We're using file for local development. We can just write the email straight to a file, but we also have an SMTP driver as well. So you can just send, email over SMTP like normal.
Interesting. So this is all, like you said, from this .env, and it's my understanding that in the .NET community, this isn't very common.
Yeah.
.envs, like they're like with the Azure CLI, they use it quite a bit actually.
Yeah.
Which is, there's like a bit of a juxtaposition here.
Yeah.
Natively, there's not any .NET support for like a configuration provider out of the box that supports .envs, and it's something I think we should probably have in the future. But I'm curious what some of our viewers think. But along that lines, we do have a question here from YouTube. They're asking if this would work with Visual Studio Code.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, in the end, this is a Blazor project with just a bunch of nice libraries and functionality built on top of it. So even this .env file, the only reason we're able to use it is because the Spark library that is a NuGet that gets attached to a new Spark project has an environment handler that will pull in your env files.
So you have it. You've got it. Nice. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yep. And I created Spark because I create a lot of side projects and smaller, internet businesses. And, I like to host them on just, VPSs, Linux, that type of thing. And it can be a little challenging without some of the, like env files and some different libraries to do that. So I wouldn't say Spark is really focused towards like an enterprise level, application. It's more, smaller shops or personal projects. Okay. So yeah, env, this is where you're going to set up your database, and we can go ahead and change that. Our DB connection, this is the driver, the database driver we're going to use. So out of the box, it uses SQLite, but I can change that to MySQL, Postgres, or SQL Server. I can also, from there, just set up our database name. Let's call it .NET Live Demo. Everything else would stay the same. And then coming back to the app settings, in the app, you're not actually going to pull the these env variables directly. You're still going to do your regular configuration .get value from the app settings. So the environment variables will get filled in the app settings. So if I wanted to, get the environment from the .env file, I could just say, config.get value spark : app : environment. Same thing. There are some values that don't get filled in from the env file. These would be things that don't really change from environment to environment. Like your login page isn't going to change from local to production. So those just get set by you directly in the app settings.json file. Okay.
I do have a real quick kind of naive question. So out of curiosity, and I'm not super familiar with like the .env files, but is it common for those to like be source controlled, or is it something that's just like local lived, kind of like secrets would be in like .NET? Okay, so it's not source controlled.
Yep. .env files are never, should never be committed to your repo because they're going to have sensitive information. A .env example does get included in the project, and this is where you want to keep this up to date, maybe not with the values for the variables, but your variables itself. So if someone's pulling down your repo, they can recreate the .env file from the .env example, fill in values themselves, and you're ready to go.
And then the other question is, is it common for these to just get written to actual environment variables in the system, like where it's operating?
No, this would be just application to application, because the application is just reading the environment variable itself. It's not it's not like applying it to the system.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. So two main folders: application and pages. Application is going to be where the majority of your backend logic resides. So we have our database folder. This is going to be our Entity Framework database context. We have events. So these are like broadcast events you can send throughout your app. So I have an example one here. So when a user registers, we broadcast a user created event, and then our listener picks that up and sends out a welcome email. So it's just a nice way to kind of decouple logic if you'd like to. We have jobs. So jobs in themselves don't really do much. It's just a class with an invoke method that you can put some logic in, like generate a report. But with that job, you can either schedule it on an interval, or you can send it to a background queue to be processed immediately. We have mail. So these are what I call mailables. Each mailable is for a specific type of email. So if I had, a welcome user email to send out when someone registers for my app, I could build out that logic here and then easily just call, send the welcome user email from anywhere in my app, and it's it's here by itself, not muddled up with some other types of emails.
And you built a library to send emails to, because I was curious, like what did you use? But then it's like I saw that is part of your project as well.
Yep. And under the hood, it's using is it MailKit? Yeah, MailKit. So it's utilizing MailKit, but then has kind of a nice structure on top of it to create these mailable classes. Then we have our models. So out of the box, these are our domain models for Entity Framework to work with. We have three main models out of the box. We have our users, our roles, and then our user roles to attach, so we can attach our roles to our users. And then these are the two custom roles out of the box it comes with. So we have regular users and we have admin users. So we can utilize that, in like our Blazor pages to limit access to different things if we want something to only be accessed by admin users. And then finally, last two things, I'm running out of breath. We have custom services. So this is just like any generic service. If you have a table called to-do items, maybe you have a to-do item service where you're doing some link queries with Entity Framework, or some other logic you want to tuck away and put into the service container and inject around. And actually, this comes with a couple of services out of the box, mainly related to authentication. And then last thing is our startup folder. This is where Spark registers all of its custom services it comes with, and then it actually has a place for you to register your own custom services. And then for events and jobs, you also have to register those in the service container for those to work properly, and to accept things like the database context. So you can tuck those away right here. And event listeners, you have to register in this register events class. And then scheduler, you have to register if you want to schedule a job on an interval. You can come here And Spark shifts was just an example of job that doesn't really do much, but you can set the interval to daily. And
what do you have? What do you have running the scheduler behind the scenes? Is that like Hangfire or something?
No, so I'm using the Coravell library, and then I have some, just some extensions for it to make it a little easier to run. But it's an in-process or in-memory scheduler, so it just runs in memory on a separate process and kicks jobs off as it sees fit. Yep. Okay, and then finally, our pages folder. So David, that probably looks familiar with Blazor. Yeah, this is just going to be our Blazor pages. It comes scaffolded with a couple. It has our index page, which is our home page. It has a user dashboard, and it has login and register routes and a profile edit page as well.
So I'm always curious about so this is a template. So presumably if you were to hit F5, it launches without, hesitation. It works and there's no compilation errors and everything's happy. Is that the experience users should expect using this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and if that's not the case, please go to GitHub and put an issue in so I can fix it. But
right.
Yeah, haven't had many issues so far from.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, so as I said, we already have a couple models created for us, and they're set up as DB sets in our database context, but we actually don't have a database yet, and those tables don't exist yet. So that's the first step in a Spark project. So I will go ahead and open up Table Plus. It's just what I like to use, and then I'll create a database table called .NET Live Demo. I can go ahead and open that. Let me make sure that's what I called it. Yep. Okay. So from there, I can go to my CLI and I can say Spark make migration initial.
So this is behind the scenes generating a EF core migration.
Yep.
That's something that Cam might know a little bit about.
Yeah, so you'll see here we have our migrations folder now has our actual migration in it. So the migration and the migrate is really just using everything created out of the box by .NET, just with keeping the syntax similar as far as the Spark commands. That's why it was created. But now I can apply that migration to the database with Spark migrate.
This is actually making me think. I'm just going to think out loud here real quick. One thing that's always been kind of like a pet peeve of mine, specifically with like file new project template, is the fact that the NuGet versions that ship with those templates are typically like pinned, or at a point in time they were relevant. They may, as time marches forward, obviously there's newer packages released. Would it make sense ever to like do file new project and then you have to right click and upgrade all of your NuGet packages, or is that something that should happen implicitly? And I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure how I'd even go about that, but I think that would be pretty good because I have had trouble, getting people to upgrade, and being that this is pre 1.0, there's a lot of changes.
Right.
I'm constantly shipping changes out, and some of them are breaking changes. So
okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll write that down. Okay.
One question I had. So from the template, you changed the database that you were using behind. So with the basic template, could you just run with what you had there, or you still had to set up the database before?
Yeah, you could completely run it out of the box without editing anything. That's mainly because it comes set up with the SQLite driver. So it's just going to generate a .db file in the root directory of your folder, and you're good to go.
Awesome.
Good.
So now because you changed the database there, then you have to create your tables and everything. Okay.
Yep.
So, and I do have another question that I thought the same thing and I was curious about. So considering that F5 experience again, how does this handle authentication? You showed that there's like an authentication services and stuff like that. So how does that work?
Yeah, so let me go to my startup, and then we do the add authentication, and then it passes in IAuth validator. So this is going to use the cookie authentication provider that comes with .NET, but we're using a custom auth validator for it. So it's going to take the cookies sent from the browser with the claims in it, test against the database if that user exists and if they're logged in, and then return, yes, they're authorized, no, they're not authorized. So here's the auth validator. And that's pretty much exactly what's happening. We're getting our claims identity. Then we're going to get the user ID from the claims. And then we do a database lookup with that user ID and test if it's a real user and if they're authenticated, or if they're logged in or not. So it's pretty simple authentication.
Awesome. So could this be used with OpenID?
Yeah, that's one of the big things I want to put in the framework with 1.0 is making it really easy to override the out-of-the-box implementations.
Sure.
So, like I have the IAuth validator class. Technically, you could override that and put in your own implementation, So instead of using cookies or whatever, you could use what you mentioned.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, going back to the database, you'll see our tables were generated. So we have our users, our user roles, and then our roles as well. So at this point, we can go ahead and start the app and check it out. Also, just to clear up, the SQLite does come hooked up out of the box and works, but you still have to create your migration and apply your migration, the first migration with the user tables. That's mainly because if I shipped it with the SQLite migrations and then someone changed the database, it's not going to work because those migration files are different, do change based on the database driver you're using. So you'd actually have to delete the migration files, then reapply them, and it just caused a lot of confusion. So
okay.
Yep. Okay, so here's our homepage. We can go ahead and register a user. And then create our account.
So presumably even that login flow and like the UI and all that stuff that you put there, you made that, right? That's from Spark.
Correct. Yep.
That's beautiful. Great job.
Thank you. Yeah, if we come down to this pages auth folder, you'll see some Razor pages. As of now, you kind of have to use Razor pages with the auth because I forget there's a certain provider that Blazor doesn't have access to. So you have to use Razor pages for just the authentication pages. So if I go to like my register route here and our code behind, you'll see on post we're checking for existing users to make sure a user with the same email doesn't exist already. We're creating our user, we're hashing our password, we're calling our user service to stick that user into the database, and then we're actually broadcasting that user created event, which is sending that welcome user email. So that comes out of the box. People can, change it as they see fit. But since our mailer is using the file mailer right now, we can come down here to our storage mail folder, and there'll be a mail.log, and you'll actually see the email that would have been sent when I registered to myself. So yeah, and then you can change that mail driver to SMTP, and you can actually send it to a real inbox.
So you mentioned CRUD before, so they were asking, is going to have full CRUD capabilities? Is that something that it's part of the template?
Yeah, so the template comes with a couple routes. It comes with the login register. It comes with a profile edit page, and then it comes with an admin dashboard as well. But to create the actual CRUD routes, we kind of need to create a new model, some database, and then create a CRUD around it. So I can show that off in a second, and hopefully that makes more sense for you. So I'll just kind of poke around the app real quick just to show what other pages come out of the box with it. So,
Sure.
So up here we have just a nice drop down. We can go to our dashboard. This is our user dashboard. If I were to try to go to this when I wasn't logged in, we would get, redirected back to the login page. We have a profile edit page. So this is where I can edit my username, my email address, and also update my passwords as well. So if I were to come in here and just change this to Weston and hit save.
Oh, so it lets you change even your email address?
It does.
Oh.
It doesn't, out of the box, it doesn't come with any, like email, what do they call those? Confirmed subscription emails or anything like that.
Okay.
Ideally, you're probably going to want to have something like that set up. But
so, I mean, because typically, isn't it your email, your username, and lots of cases. So I'm curious. Yeah. That's typically one of the unique identifiers. So how did you implement that behind the scenes? I'm intrigued now. You're like, don't worry about it, Dave. Shut up.
As far as how am I updating the email address, or
no, yeah. So when you registered, you put in username, which was your email address.
Yeah.
And then you put in a password.
Yeah.
So then it's tied to your username or your email, presumably, and a password.
Yeah.
So how are you logged in and able to change what I would assume to be your username,
Sure.
i.e. the email address?
Yep. Good question. So when you post that form, I have some logic in here. So we're doing a similar thing to the register where we're checking if the email exists that you're trying to change to. And then, what is it? 1 second. Yeah, email already in use. And then there's something in here. I'm trying to find it. On state has changed. And then there's one more. Where is it?
So when you change the email address, then does it log you out because now you changed your
Yeah, in the user service, this is what I was trying to find. The auth service. I guess I didn't add this to the Blazor, but basically what should be here is a reset user login method where it logs you out and then back in with your new information. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
You used to be able to do something like that in the ASP.NET Core identity that's built into MVC and Razor. But I think they took that out. I don't think you can change that like that anymore in the ASP.NET Core identity, just because it's like the reasons that David mentioned.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I was on the fence about what to allow people to change, but I figured I'd give it all to them, and then they can remove it if they'd like to. That was kind of my thought process. But
love it.
Yeah. So, and then same thing with password. You can put your current password in. It'll validate to make sure that is your current password, and then you can put a new password in.
And do you have password restrictions and?
Yeah, that's one of the features I'm looking forward to implementing. So if you look in the app settings, we have this password section here, and it has all sorts of different, password rules. These actually aren't implemented yet. So based on the comment, not implemented yet, but I look forward to implementing that. So.
Yeah, that brings up a really interesting point here. So this project is open source, right? Mm-hmm. I see Spark-.net framework is the repository. I'll share that here real quick. We've got a number of stars, I'm approaching 400. So if you're watching, give Wes a star on GitHub, and I'm assuming you're open to contributions from the community.
Yep. We've had several already, and that's actually where some of the different project templates came from. I created the Blazor project template, but we have people contribute and add.
Oh, I love that.
Razor pages. I have a MVC API pull request currently in the pipeline from someone. So yeah.
And just so the community understands the best way to contribute, Do you prefer them opening an issue first to discuss things, or using the discussions tab, or just come in right away with a pull request, or like what's your preferred way?
The discussions are open on GitHub, so you can either come in there and post about something you want to contribute, or on the spark-framework.com website, there's a link to our Discord, and
love it.
there's a whole channel dedicated to ideas. So that's a good place to run ideas by. So you're not building something that maybe won't get accepted.
Right. Awesome.
But people are loving the project so far. Like all the comments, super positive.
Yeah, there was 391 when I mentioned that. Now we're up to almost 400. 399. So keep giving it stars.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to remember when I made my first initial commit to this project, but I think it was probably around 5 months ago or so. But
awesome. That's great.
If you follow me on Twitter, I talk about it a lot, so you might be annoyed by me by now. But yeah. Okay. I mean, that's most of the out of the box, scaffolded pages I've shown you already. So there's one more. It comes with an admin dashboard, but I don't have this role, so it's not going to let me actually use it. If I were to go into the database and give my user the admin role, I could access the admin dashboard. It doesn't have much there. It's just mostly use that as an example of how you would create a Blazor page for like an admin or something. So, all right. I think Mariah, you asked about CRUD, so I can quickly go ahead and just create a CRUD based on a Entity Framework model.
And it was someone from the community that was asking. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So the first step would be to run the Spark make model command, and then we can make this anything. I'll just call this like to do or to do items or whatever. We'll just do that real quick. And then if we come over to our application folder, you'll see we'll have a to do model. And every model generated by Spark comes with a base model class, and this is going to have your ID and then your timestamps already set up for you. So we're just extending that, and then I can go ahead and just add another property. And then if we come over to our database context, we can go ahead and add our to-do. And now, just like we did at the beginning, we're ready to create a migration for that model. And then apply that migration to our database.
And the warning about the EF tools, is that because the Spark is using an older version and so it just emits?
Yeah, I think it's the version on my computer is not matching with Spark, and I'm too lazy to fix it. So that's pretty much what
just
happened.
curious.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah. So our migration ran, so we should have a to-dos table in here, which we do. So we have our title. Like I said, we're extending that base model class, so we have our IDs and our timestamps as well. And then it's sad, I can't remember how I did some things because it's been so long, but I set it up so we're using the snake case, or I think that's snake case, right, with the underscores as the property names. So in our model, we're going to be using was it camel case or Pascal case? I get them confused, but uppercase for each different word. In our database, it's actually going to get changed to underscores. That's mainly because if you ever use Postgres and you're trying to use uppercase columns, it conflicts with all sorts of Postgres reserved words. So that gets defaulted to that instead. So we have our table. So we could do a couple things now. We could run the Spark make page command, and that would actually create a new Blazor page. But you can add an S to that and run the Spark make pages command, And then from here, you can pass in your model name, and that's going to generate all 4 of our CRUD pages and an auto mapper file that'll map all of our view models to the actual model itself.
Get out of here. Are you serious?
I am serious. Yes.
I love it when a plan comes together. That's so cool.
I know. I built this last night, so. Yeah.
Yeah,
New
it's like-
project
it's like-
just for you all today.
It's kind of like conference-driven development.
Yeah. It's like you procrastinate on something long enough to the last night before the exam, then you finally do it. But yeah. So, anyways, we have our four pages now. So our index, it's going to figure out what to call the routes based on the model. So we have our to-dos, which is our index page where we show all our to-dos. We have our edit page, which is gonna pass in our ID, so we can figure out what to do we're editing. Our to-do/create page, and then our to-dos show page, which is going to pass in our ID to know which to-do to go grab from the database to show the properties for it.
I do have just a question.
Yeah.
It's not related to anything here. It's just, well, what's theme are you using? Because for me, I don't think I like your theme, and that's just my opinion. I'm allowed to say that, Wes. I mean,
Very
you know what-
David.
It reminds me of the Joker, right?
Oh,
yeah,
Multiple shades of purple and green.
it's my old eyes. It's harder for me to see certain things. Rider Dark. Okay.
yes, Rider
Enough
Dark.
said. Enough said.
Yep. But hey, I didn't go all the way to Rider. I just stole the theme, and that's it. So.
Ryder, we love you. I didn't mean that.
That's funny. Yeah. It's okay. I forgive you, David. So, one thing, so like I said, this is, scaffolding out everything based on the model, except the properties. That's something I haven't finished yet. I would like to somehow figure out what properties are already on the model, and then my view models can just already have those set up for the developer. That isn't the case outside of the ID. I know they're going to have an ID, but that's it. But yeah, it's going to inject a couple services. So it's going to inject our context factory, which is, it's just going to get an instance of your DB context. That's kind of just how you have to use it with Blazor server because of lifetime scopes and stuff. But yeah, and then auto mapper as well. So it's going to map everything for you. The only thing you really have to do is come in here and set up so we'll go ahead and add our title.
David can contain himself right now.
I'm sorry. I'm really giggly this morning. I'm just watching some of the chat, and I shouldn't have said anything about your theme. I'm sorry.
That's funny.
And now they're making fun of him. It's like it's well deserved. Keep piling on, folks.
Oh no, everyone's got their own theme preferences. Like, I'm just saying.
I'm trying to remember what the base Visual Studio theme even looks like. It's been so long, I can't even remember.
Oh yeah.
But okay, where was I at?
Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, so to get this to work, you basically have to come in here and just add your missing properties to your view models. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. Add required when it's needed. So we're making sure we're requiring the user to enter the correct things. Oh. And then show as well, update that. And then if we come to our models, most everything's set up. It's just we're not showing those properties I mentioned. So I go ahead and just add those properties real quick in our create form. We already have our edit form set up, hooked up to event handlers and the models. We just have to add our input text fields. So let's go ahead and add a label for our title. This will be an input text. And we'll bind the value to our model.title. And then we can also add a validation message for that as well. Okay. And then I can add that. I think I can just drop that into my edit form as well. And everything should be, our show page. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and show our model.title as well. All right. So I think that's everything we need. We can go ahead and run that, and we should have a nice little CRUD for our to-dos.
And this one is using Tailwind, right?
Correct. Yep.
So Tailwind's the default unless you specify Bootstrap. Is there a way to like omit CSS altogether if people want to do their own and not rely on a framework?
Yeah, that is something I want to add, just like a vanilla CSS option or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, just no framework. I'm not that good with CSS, so I got to rely on something to help me be better with it.
You and me both.
Yeah. Okay, so here's our to-dos route. This will show any to-dos we currently have. We can go ahead and hit our create button. If I try to save this, we'll get title field is required. Go ahead and add clean my room, hit save. There's our first to-do. We should be able to view that, and it'll show the title of the to-do. We can also edit it, hit update. It'll hook everything up, and then we can also delete it. And there's our CRUD.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you wanted to get started with this, I do recommend going the Blazor route, especially with the changes in .NET 8. They all look really awesome. And I love that the out of the box kind of Blazor, I don't know what you want to call it, type is server-side rendering, just using normal HTTP protocols. And then if you want to, take a step up to WebSockets or WASM, you can do that, in individual pages. So I'm really excited to go all in on Blazor and .NET 8. Everything looks awesome. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, is all of the layouts that come out of the box, is it like responsive? Like if you shrink your screen and stuff, does it work on mobile, or do you have a way to like change the layout that would be defaulted?
Everything's responsive. So, you come in here, you make it smaller, you're going to have a little hamburger toggle. You can toggle that. You get all your routes here, toggle it back off.
Love it.
Yeah,
because those are some of the biggest low-hanging fruit things that templates would lack that are really nice to have. So that's great that you already have it. So I'm curious, what are some of the top priorities moving forward for the project? Like if you had the top 3 things that you want to do in the next couple months.
The first would be a file storage drive, library. So I want to create a library that people can easily either, specify a driver similar to if we're looking in the .env file here. We have our log channel, we have our mail mailer, and we're specifying the file driver, right? And for the mailer, we can change it to SMTP. I want to create something similar for file storage where we can say, hey, I want to save this to the file system. I want to save this in Azure Blob Storage. I want to save this in AWS, what's it called? The AWS storage thing, whatever that's called. So different drivers. Probably the first iteration of that will be pretty bare bones, like a file system type of thing. So if you're in a service and maybe someone's uploading a profile picture, you can just inject that file storage service and say file storage.save right here on my system, and that's it. Or if you change your driver to Azure Blob Storage, you can say the exact same method, but it knows you're using Azure Blob Storage, and that's it. So file storage library out of the box, upgrading to .NET 8 Blazor, That's a big one once that's out. And then I want to finish some of the auth settings as well. Like I showed you some of those password settings that aren't being used. I really want to get those into the framework.
Yeah, it looks like some of the community members are specifically asking for like how they can help in terms of like, I don't know if you want to have discussions that you put together or issues and you put like help wanted, but it looks like you've got people here that are eager to contribute to this.
Awesome. Yeah. I think also in, let's see, in my documentation, I have a roadmap somewhere. Yeah, here. So on the introduction page, I have a roadmap. There's some other things. So I have HTTP client library. I am open to using an existing one like REST Sharp or something to just make HTTP requests behind the scenes a little easier. File storage library. I'd like to get some sort of database seeders set up. I would use the entity framework, my model builder thing you can do with seeding, but I'd like to create some sort of nice structure with it and use this Spark CLI to generate those seeders. Let's see, Inertia.js, that's something I probably should remove. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not, but Byte asset bundling. So right now, all of the out-of-the-box projects that get generated for you come with Tailwind CSS or Bootstrap, and it comes with Alpine.js to help you with little UI interactions. But those are both referencing the CDN. I would like to get some nice build settings where, on the start of the project, it's kicking off your Tailwind, process that builds the Tailwind CSS file out for you and bundles everything up. I'd like to figure that out. I haven't got to start on that yet though. Yeah.
That's awesome. When you mentioned the HTTP client library, you mentioned the REST Sharp. I'm familiar with that. There's something that I've actually been starting documentation on that touches on some new Microsoft extensions that are currently in preview that are totally top of mind. But no one's probably even heard of this yet, but it's called Auto Client, and it's from Microsoft. It's officially managed, and it's in preview right now. But what it's going to do is allow for source generated HTTP client with like dependency injection hooks and everything like that. So it's similar to, I think, to what REST Sharp does, or there's another one called Refit or something like that. But but it's all source generated. So you just kind of decorate like an interface, and it creates the implementation, and it creates the DI hooks for it, and does all that stuff, and it ties in with the HTTP client factory. It's pretty slick.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm totally open to using, like out of the box Microsoft stuff as well. It's just most of the libraries that come with Spark, like the mailer, the jobs, the event, they all have this like fluent syntax.
Sure.
I just really like that. It's real simple. And
absolutely.
I would be open to using the HTTP factory or client, but I would like some sort of something on top of it to add syntax to it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, do you have anything else that you want to show us, or time to wrap it up?
Yeah, we can wrap it up.
All right. Sounds like a plan then. Well, thank you everyone for watching on .NET Live. You can check out our other great .NET Live TV streams and videos at .NET Whack Live. And don't tune in next week because we're off next week. But the week after that, we'll be back with our good friend John Alexander, who will join the show to talk about some code that he wrote for a job interview not long ago.
Can you all join us to say happy birthday to Cam as well?
Yes, happy birthday, Cam.
Happy birthday.
Special episode.
Oh, thank you guys. And thank you to everyone out there. And we'll see you next time on .NET Live.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.